نحمده تعالى ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن بالله ونشكره ونعوذ به من شرور انفسنا ومن سيئات اعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له واشهد ان لا اله الا الله وحده لا شريك له واشهد ان سيدنا ونبينا محمدا عبد الله ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى اله واصحابه وكل من اهتدى بهداهم واستنى بسنتهم وقتفى اثرهم الى يوم الجزاء والدين. My dear brothers, today we are going to talk about how the Prophet ﷺ used to deal with the hardship. How did he used to manage the difficult situations? Prophet ﷺ has lived so many difficult situations, so many trials. How did he manage those trials? How did he use to do in those situations? This is a very important topic in today's life, in which many people are probably suffering from the consequences of the current pandemic, in which many people they see themselves as being in great stress and in great trial, in great hardship. So if we compare the situation to the situation of the Prophet ﷺ, and then we talk about some of the hardships that the Prophet ﷺ has lived, you will see that this situation is nothing compared to that, compared to the difficulty that the Prophet ﷺ has lived in his life, compared to all the situations in which the Prophet ﷺ, he was in a real trial. So today, we know with the current pandemic, our life has changed somehow, and many people are probably suffering from stress, and suffering from anxiety, are suffering from the consequences of the government laws and government new rules to be respected. We know we can't pray together anymore in the masjid, we need to sit separately. We can't pray together close to each other in the prayer. So all of this has caused some emotional affliction to some people. So in similar situations, how the Prophet ﷺ did he used to do? What did he use to, what was his attitude, first of all? And how did he use to do, what did he use to do to overcome those difficulties? Right, let's start first of all by having a look into the hardships that the Prophet ﷺ has lived in his life. And we know that there are many. The hardships that are spread across the community have been gathered in the life of the Prophet ﷺ. You might have lost your father, but not your son. You might have lost your son, but not your father. The Prophet ﷺ had experienced both. You might have experienced illness, but you have a good financial situation. The Prophet ﷺ has experienced both. You might be in a good financial situation but suffering from health, or vice versa. And all of this we will see that the Prophet suffered greatly from. So let's start just by giving some examples of the trials that the Prophet endured in his life. Right. We know all of us that the Prophet he was born orphan. He lost his mother while he was still very young. His grandfather took care of him, and he also died. We know that he married Khadija, his beloved wife. He never forgotten about Khadija during his whole life as a prophet and messenger. He married Khadija, and a few years after the da'wah started, a few years after his call to Allah, he has lost Khadija as well. He has suffered from the loss of Khadija as well. He has lost his uncle, who used to be a great support of him against his own community, who were afflicting him with the most difficulties and the most hardships. He has lost even this uncle, who was a great support for him, and who was pushing his own tribe from making harm to the Prophet ﷺ. So we get already a sense of the difficulties that the Prophet ﷺ he was living in. He has experienced, as I mentioned, all kinds of difficulties. He has experienced as well as a father the loss of a child. He has lost his beloved child, Ibrahim, while he was still young. And he lost all of his children during his lifetime, apart from Fatima, who followed him months after his death. So during his lifetime, he has lost all of his children, apart from Fatima. So you can understand the difficulty that the Prophet ﷺ, from family side at least, that he went through during his life. He experienced as well the difficulty of the illness. We know in the hadith that Aisha she reported, the Prophet ﷺ, when he was in the agony of the death, when he was very ill, when he could not even come out to lead the prayer, he used to put his hand in a bucket of water where he will put his hand in and he will wipe his face, saying, La ilaha illallah, inna lil mawti la sakrat. And he was greatly in pain of the agony of the death. He was saying, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, La ilaha illallah, there is no work of worship except Allah. Certainly the death has its agonies. And he has experienced the great difficulty during that moment and the illness which has come before his death, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He has experienced a little difficulty, a financial difficulty. He was in blockade with all his family, with all the people who have responded to the call of Islam. He has experienced a great difficulty in the blockade, where in 3 years he was being separated from all his tribe. In 3 years he was being separated from all his family, from all his tribe. They are all put to one side, and they could not speak to people, they could not trade with people, they could not do anything with people. Today we are just being asked in a lockdown to stay 1 month at home, and we find it difficult. Imagine the situation in which he was during 3 years being in a blockade, in which he cannot trade with anyone, in which he cannot find his food, in which he cannot purchase anything, in which he cannot do anything. The children were crying out of hunger. People have eaten during these 3 years the tree leaves. Just this gives you a sense of the situation and hardship that the Prophet ﷺ has lived in. And probably just by talking about these hardships, one can reflect now about his current situation, about the great blessings in which we are living in, from safety, security, from food and drink. We eat up to we are full. We sleep in the night and we close our door knowing that we are going to be safe during that night. We have, alhamdulillah, our health. And when we compare all these blessings, and we compare it faced to the situation we are living in, we will certainly have a better understanding and we have a better acceptance of the situation in which we are living in. And compare all of this situation to the situation and the difficulties that the Prophet has lived in during his lifetime as a prophet and messenger. Not even his lifetime as a prophet and messenger, even before he was being a prophet and messenger. His childhood, have he lost both his parents? Have he lost his care? Moving from family to family. So this gives you a situation and sense of the difficulties that the Prophet has lived in. And certainly, Allah Azza wa Jal, He chooses whatever He wants. Allah Azza wa Jal, He creates whatever He wants and He chooses whatever He wants. And certainly, in difficulties that He put in the life of the Prophet ﷺ, there is a wisdom. And that wisdom might be so that we can identify ourselves and our difficulties in the Prophet ﷺ. See how he has dealt with those situations. See how he has managed those difficult times. Get lessons from it and apply to our life, to today's life. As I say, many people are blaming the conditions. Many people are blaming the situation. Many people put the blame on the time, on the condition, on the situation, while we are better off than many throughout the history of humanity. So, how did the Prophet ﷺ use to manage during all these difficulties? So, when we look at the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, we can identify clearly 3 attitudes that the Prophet ﷺ used to take in these difficult times. 3 attitudes that the Prophet ﷺ was adopting when he was in trial, when he was in hardship. These 3 attitudes, they are not the only 3. Probably someone can read the Sunnah and identify many more. There are certainly lessons and patterns in the life of the Prophet ﷺ, so that we as Muslims can follow him. لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ إِسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. You certainly have an example in the Messenger of Allah, so that those who fear Allah can follow his footsteps, can follow his guidance, can follow the way he has dealt with the situation. These three attitudes are: first of all, he was saddened by the situation. Like any human being, he has feelings, he has responses, natural responses to any situation. Some situations would sadden him, as other situations would make him happy. Some situations would frustrate him, and other situations would make him feel joyful, would make him feel happy. So, like any human being, like any mankind, he experienced the same feelings that you and I are experiencing in this situation or in any other situation. He was, that's the first attitude. He was accepting he was feeling, or he was suddenly feeling pain by the situation, feeling pain by the difficulty. But he would accept his destiny, no matter what the situation was. No matter how difficult is the situation, no matter how great is the hardship, he would accept what Allah has predestined on him, and he would fully submit to his law. Probably just to give you an overall picture of the three attitudes, and then we will detail one this week, inshallah, the first one that I'm talking about now, and then probably next week we will continue on the other two attitudes. The second attitude that the Prophet ﷺ was adopting is that he would straight go back to his Lord, asking him for help and support. He would straight go back invoking his Lord, asking Allah for his help. He would straight raise his hands. He would straight go to the prayer. Arihna biha ya Bilal. This was a saying that the Prophet ﷺ used to mention whenever he was in great difficulty. Arihna biha ya Bilal. Comfort us by calling to the prayer. Bilal was his mu'adhin, was the one who called to prayer. So the Prophet ﷺ, whenever he was in great difficulty, he would call Bilal. Arihna biha ya Bilal. And he will raise his hands asking his Lord for support. The last attitude is that he will take the necessary causes to overcome the difficulty, to overcome the situation in which he was in. So let's just talk in a bit of detail about the first attitude, which is that he was saddened like any human being by the situation. He will have some emotional responses to any situation. Some situation would make him angry. He is like any human being, up to the point that the disbelievers, what they say, وَقَالُوا مَا لِهَذَا الرَّسُولِ. What about this messenger? That he eats food and he works in the market. He goes to do his own shopping like any one of us. وَقَالُوا مَا لِهَذَا الرَّسُولِ. What is about this messenger that he eats food like us? And he works in the market. لَوْلَا أُنزِلَ إِلَيْهِ مَلَكٌ فَيَكُونَ مَعَهُ نَذِيرًا. Should he have probably an angel come down to him so that he can help him? As Allah has created him as a mankind, He has created him so that we can identify ourselves, our situations, get the guidance out of how He has dealt with any particular situation. So the first, as I mentioned, is the situation will sadden him, but he will accept his destiny. The situation, for example, of the death of Ibrahim, which is his son. As I say, he lost all of his children during his lifetime, except Fatima. He lost it after, she died after the death of the Prophet. Ibrahim, when the Prophet he lost Ibrahim, he was very saddened by the situation. He got very emotional about the situation. He cried about the loss of Ibrahim. Prophet, when he was burying him, he said, إِنَّ الْعَيْنَ لَتَحْزَنُ وَإِنَّ الْقَلْبَ لَيَدْمَعُ وَإِنَّ عَلَى فِرَاقِكَ يَا إِبْرَاهِيمُ لَمَحْزُونٌ. The eye is falling into tear, and the heart into sadness. But we will only say what pleases our Lord. وَإِنَّ عَلَى فِرَاقِكَ يَا إِبْرَاهِيمُ لَمَحْزُونٌ. And for the Lord, and we are really sad for your loss, Ibrahim. This is the words that Prophet has said during the loss of his beloved son Ibrahim. Another situation is غزوة الأحزاب. So غزوة الأحزاب, the battle of the coalitions. So many Arab tribes have formed a coalition to come to Medina and destroy Muslims and Islam as they supposedly were thinking. So they formed a coalition from all the Arab tribes to come to Medina, to encircle Medina, and to attack Islam from all sides, and to get rid of Medina and all of its Muslim residents. The coalition was formed of 10,000 people. And at that time, the Muslims, the people who can fight for Islam are only 3,000 people. So in this difficult situation, the Prophet ﷺ seen around him 3,000 people, and seen with him 3,000 people, and around Medina 10,000 people. How did he manage this situation? This is a great difficulty. This is, as I mentioned, when we compare this type of situation to today's life, our difficulty we cannot consider this a difficulty. When we eat until we are completely full, when we sleep until we completely get our rest, we cannot consider ourselves to be in difficulty. But whatever. The Prophet ﷺ seen with him 3,000 people, and the Quraysh, or the tribes around Medina, the tribes forming the coalition, 10,000 people. Prophet ﷺ, in this major crisis, in this time when all Muslims are in danger of losing their lives, and when even the existence of Islam is being threatened, Prophet ﷺ, he did not give up. He accepted his destiny. He accepted the situation in which Allah has put him in. He didn't blame the situation or the conditions or the Arab tribes or what about these Arabs doing this again. No. He accepted the situation in which Allah has put him in. He accepted the difficulty. He accepted the hardship. And he kept faith in his Lord. And he kept faith, and he was sure of the promise of his Lord. So these are just a bit of details on the first attitude. Next week, inshallah ta'ala, if Allah allows us to live longer, we will talk in a bit more detail about the second and third attitudes. Give some examples from his life so that we can identify ourselves in those examples. اللهم اصلح احوالنا في الامور كلها واجلنا من خزي الدنيا وعذاب الاخره. قل اعوذ بهذا واستغفر الله لكم ولسائر المسلمين.